Baruch Hashem, we've reached yet another Shabbos, and I find Shabbos to be such a welcome relief in my week, every week, but especially in these times. In some ironic fashion, I actually think disconnecting in these times, even though our technologies, our connection to the outside world these days, I still find it to be such a welcome relief as I enter Shabbos, the ability to relax and to disconnect from all the technology that has captured our time and our minds at this present state. And it's really a pleasure to be able to welcome in this sacred and holy and special day with some words of Torah that I'm happy to share with you this morning. In our beautiful opening of this week's Parsha of Sefer Vayikra, Parshas Vayikra, after Hashem's loving call to Moshe, Vayikra Moshe, as Rashi points out, Lashon Chiba, the language of love, the language of invitation, the Torah begins to describe the laws of the korbanos which were to be brought, which became very relevant now after the Hakamas HaMishkan, the building of the Mishkan, which was detailed in last week's Parsha, which began yesterday on Rosh Chodesh Nisan. The Mishkan was able to be used, and therefore Hashem has to explain to us all of the korbanos and the details of those laws. The first korban described in our Parsha is the korban ola, what we call the elevation offering or the burnt offering, one of the only korbanos that is completely consumed on the Mizbeach, as opposed to others where at least part of them is eaten. There are many forms of korban ola. There's the obligatory korban ola, which is brought on many different occasions. There's the korban tzibur, korban tamid, which is brought every morning and every evening of a korban ola. There's the korban ola of Shabbos, of Yantif, of a Nazir who completes his or her time of Nazirus. It's brought by a woman after childbirth. Many forms of obligatory korban ola. The korban ola being described here in our parsha is actually the voluntary korban ola. We know that from the way it's described. The Torah says, im ola korbano, if you're going to bring korban ola. That if means that there's a possibility you won't bring it, and if it's an obligation, obviously you would be bringing it, so that means that it's talking about the voluntary korban ola. A person can voluntarily bring a korban ola for many different reasons. Perhaps the person violated an avera of the Torah for which there is no prescribed korban or punishment, and therefore they want to rectify it in some way. They could bring a voluntary korban ola. It could be brought by a person who fails to perform a mitzvah saseh, a positive commandment. There's no punishment for that. There's no korban for that, but a person could voluntarily want to try to come closer to Hashem and bring the korban ola. Or a person who didn't commit any avera, who didn't refrain from any mitzvah saseh, but wanted simply to come closer and grow in their connection to God, could voluntarily bring a korban ola, and many other situations as well. Our parsha describes three types of korban ola that could be brought. The Torah begins with the korban olas bakar, a korban ola which is brought of cattle, and then it describes im min hatzon korbano, could be brought also from sheep, and then the third type is im min ha'of korbano, if you bring a korban ola of fowl. And the Mefarshim explain that the reason three options are given for this voluntary korban ola is because people have different means, different financial means. Not everybody is capable of bringing korban bakar, which would be the ideal form of a korban, the most expensive kind, but a person should have options to bring something within their own means. When it comes to the third type, the korban ola sa'of, the ola that's brought from fowl, there is something unique about the way it's brought. Torah says, V'shisa oso bichnafav. A person has to, the Kohen who's sacrificing the korban ola has to split it apart, bichnafav, with its wings, with its feathers. So as opposed to some of the other korbanos from animals which are brought, which are skinned, which have a whole process of preparation, basically, minus one removal of one part of the fowl, it's put on the mizbeach as is, intact, with all of its feathers, with all of its organs, with all of the gory details, which I will spare you right now. So, if you think about it, the korban ola sa'of is brought by the poorest of people. And Rashi points out why it's brought in its complete intact form along with its feathers. Rashi says, Notza mamish, it's brought literally with all of the feathers intact on the bird, not cleaned off in any way. V'halo ein lecha hedyot shemeriach reach ra shel knafayim nisrafim ve'ein nafsho katza alav. How could we tell the Kohen to bring this ola sa'of with its feathers on the mizbeach? Everyone knows, a hedyot, the most simple person knows that when you burn feathers of a bird, it smells horrible. There's an awful smell. Why would we want to fill the mikdash with this awful smell of burning feathers? We should skin the bird, we should take off the feathers, we should pluck the feathers, whatever we're going to do to make the smell a little better. V'lama amar akaso Vayikra. Why did the Torah say that this should be the korban of a beautiful smell when we bring it with its feathers? The answer is Kidei sheyeh hamizbeach saveya umehudar bekorbano shel ani. It's so that the mizbeach, the altar, should be satiated and should be beautified with the korban of the ani, with the sacrifice of the poor. If an ani sacrificed so much to be able to bring this bird, right? They gave everything to be able to bring this korban to come closer to Hashem, then the mizbeach, then Hashem is willing to take it all, even with the bad smell, for the sake of love, of embracing that gift which the ani brings. Said in a different way, imagine the ani would come. They've sacrificed everything to be able to bring this korban. They have a beautiful, deep desire and a deep slave to come closer to Hashem. They show up and the Kohen starts to pluck the feathers and starts to skin it and starts to remove. And then they put it on the mizbeach, this tiny little remnant of a bird. How would that feel for the ani? When the bird is brought intact with its feathers, there's a little nofach to it. There's a little volume to it. It's a nice big bird. Start to take off the feathers, which give it some volume. It looks like a nothing, like a nebach. Why would we want the ani to feel bad about the korban that is so special to him or her that they brought into the mizbeach? They brought into the mikdash, and so we leave it intact despite the bad smell. There's a tremendous idea latent within this pasuk. The Torah is teaching us that we all must endure a little bit of discomfort, a little bit of self-sacrifice for the sake of lifting the spirits of another individual, for the sake of lifting the spirits especially of another individual who might be more vulnerable, who might be more emotionally unstable. To give the ani the satisfaction, the pride, the feeling of joy of seeing his or her bird being brought beautifully on the mizbeach, we can endure a little bit of a bad smell for a couple of minutes. The mizbeach, even Hashem, the sacred space of the mikdash, was willing to endure, really not only endure, but to thrive and even enjoy the bad smell, the smell that would usually be considered bad, of the burning feathers, because they were so overwhelmed with the joy and the satisfaction and the beauty of this ani coming so selflessly to bring this korban to Hashem. The Talmud Rebbe takes this idea to an entirely new level, based on an insight, a diuk, into the lashon, the language that Rashi uses here, quoting from the Medrash, an idea that the Talmud Rebbe says teaches us that the ability to suffer through or to thrive or to see pleasantness in the bad smell of the feathers, to take joy and pleasure in the sacrifice of the ani, requires you to be a certain type of person. Notice here, Rashi says, when he describes how feathers smell bad to the world, he says, Halo ein lecha hedyot shemeriach reach ra shel knafayim nisrafim ve'ein nafsho katzalav. Every hedyot, every simpleton, every simple person in the world can smell feathers and smell a bad smell. The Talmud Rebbe says what Rashi is teaching us over here, that it's only the simpleton, it's only the hedyot that would smell the smell of feathers on the korban of the ani and be disgusted. Any person who can raise themselves above the level of being a hedyot, raise themselves up to a higher moral level, a higher level of empathy, would never say, oh, that smells disgusting. What they would say is, wow, I'm so overwhelmed by the sight of the ani bringing this korban with full nedivus slave. I am inspired by it. I don't even smell the bad smell anymore. Or, I do smell it, but it's not so bad. Who cares? I'll endure it for a couple of minutes for the sake of this beautiful moment, for the sake of raising the spirits of this ani who gave everything to be here, who gave everything to be close to Hashem. We find ourselves right now in a situation in which we are constantly being asked to sacrifice of ourselves and to endure for others. When we're sick, even just not feeling a little bit well, and we're not sure what we have, we're being asked not to go outside, not to go near anybody, just in case we have the coronavirus and could infect others. When we're well, we're asked not to go to shul, not to gather in home minyanim, not even to come close to another person, lest we be carrying something that we might give over to them without knowing, lest we might endanger someone who's of a more vulnerable population or of an elderly population. We're being asked to quarantine ourselves, to take precautions, all for the sake, yes, of ourselves, but for the sake of others, for the sake of the system, for the sake of not overloading the medical system. We're being asked constantly to endure, to sacrifice a little bit for the sake of others. Many of us are confined into our homes filled with other people, all making demands of us at the same time, with our work and with friends and with family and with Zoom and with this and that and cooking and shopping and taking care of all kinds of needs at the same time. Everyone's demanding of us, and we are being asked to sacrifice and to endure for the sake of others. We're being asked to do exactly what the Kohanim did as they faced the Korban Ola Sa'of of the Ani in the Mikdash, to endure a little bit for the sake of raising the spirits and keeping safe others around us. The Sanzer Rebbe gave an amazing talk this week about the coronavirus, addressing his Hasidim. It was such an important talk that they translated into English, and I think there are very powerful moments of this talk. But what he said in this talk is so special to me at this moment, something I'm thinking about in light of this Dvar Torah. He describes, based on the Masorah that he saw from his father, unbelievable, holy Tzanz Kloisenberger Rebbe, one who was saved from the ashes of the Holocaust, who built up the city of Kiryat Tzanz near Netanya and Laniado Hospital with a vision of helping people, with a vision of contributing to society and to making a Kiddush Hashem even after losing absolutely everything in his life. Tremendous figure, tremendous person with much more to say about him. His son, the current Sanzer Rebbe, gave this talk saying that the Masorah of his father and grandfather, all the way back to his ancestors, Bnei Yisachar and other Hasidic masters, was to keep calm even in the most stressful situations in the home. And he ends by saying, our first obligation is to be happy, to be calm within ourselves and to bring calm into our homes, to be calm with the children, to devote time to them, and to demonstrate kindness in everything we do. Now more than ever, we are being asked to demonstrate that kindness to ourselves, to take care of ourselves, and that kindness and enduring sacrifice that we make for others, just to lift their spirits, just to keep them safe, just to keep them happy, just to help a little bit, step by step. Perhaps if we can do that, if we can tap into the energy of our parsha, of the Korban Ola Sa'of, of the burning feathers that the Kohanim endured, we can bring a measure of redemption into this world. Maybe we can bring a measure of light into the darkness that we face in our time. May it truly be so. May we be zoche, may we merit, and may we be successful at infusing our lives at these hard moments with joy, with inspiration, with kedusha this Shabbos, from the words of the Torah that we learn, from the words and memories that we share, from the things that we talk about with ourselves and in our homes. Have a wonderful Shabbos.